Have you ever actually stopped to think about why we call someone sweet, tasty, or appetizing? We use the language of eating to describe romance completely naturally, literally without a second thought. But why do we do this? What is the hidden connection between our dinner plates and our deepest, most intimate desires? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating metaphor. We're going to peel back the biological, the cognitive, and the cultural layers that make food the absolute ultimate symbol for intimacy. And I promise you, by the end of this, you will never hear everyday language the exact same way again. Let's dive right into this layered cake of a topic. We'll be looking at desire on the tongue, the brain's reward loop, shedding animal instincts, linguistic minimalism, why food exactly, and finally, the ultimate cultural translation. Let's get started. Part 1. Desire on the tongue. So the fact that we borrow food terms to describe desire is definitely not an accident. In cognitive linguistics, there's a concept called cognitive mapping. See, sexual desire is a highly abstract experience. So to actually make sense of it, our brains naturally borrow from a super concrete, universally understood everyday experience, and that's eating. It's exactly why we use words like honey or sugar. We're mapping the very physical reality of tasting food onto the abstract feeling of love, just so we can wrap our heads around it. Moving on to part 2, the brain's reward loop. Now, if we look at the biological base layer, we find a completely fascinating evolutionary plot twist. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, humanity has two fundamental driving forces: consuming energy, which is eating, and reproducing, which is intimacy. Because these are our top two survival imperatives, they actually share the exact same underlying biological hardware in the brain. We are talking about the exact same dopamine mechanism. Think about it. Whether you are longing for a romantic partner or, I don't know, a massive slice of chocolate cake, your brain is firing through this exact same loop. It starts with a craving, it moves to satisfaction, results in immense pleasure, and eventually leads right back to craving again. Because wanting a person and wanting food share this precise neurological pathway, the linguistic overlap we use is completely natural. Linguists call this an expression chain, and it's incredibly robust. Food provides a complete metaphor system for us to rely on. Tasting maps directly to physical contact. Craving is attraction. Addiction is a strong desire. Sharing food equates to being in an intimate relationship. And of course, the forbidden fruit perfectly captures taboo love. The whole system just maps over flawlessly. Which brings us to part 3, shedding animal instincts. As we move up from raw biology to human culture, there's a really interesting conflict that happens. Society often wants to distance itself from pure biology, right? Especially in cultures influenced by strict etiquette, like Confucianism. In those cultures, comparing desire to an animal is seen as vulgar. It implies a total loss of control. But comparing it to a fruit, well, that sanitizes it. Describing someone as a ripe fruit gives desire an aesthetic, natural, maturing quality, rather than an aggressive, animalistic one. And that introduces us to food as the boundary object. In cultures with strong ascetic traditions, think societies with deep Islamic or Christian roots, sex and desire can be highly taboo to discuss openly. But food? Food is completely public. It is 100% safe to talk about at the dinner table. This creates a brilliant social workaround called the replacement mechanism. We use something totally socially acceptable, food, to refer to unspoken or restricted desires. The forbidden fruit is literally the ultimate example of this. It's just food, right? But it universally symbolizes temptation and crossing forbidden lines. Food acts as the perfect boundary between what we feel inside and what we're actually allowed to say out loud. All right, part 4, linguistic minimalism. Beyond biology and culture, our language system absolutely loves the food metaphor from a pure efficiency standpoint. Honestly, languages are kind of lazy. They want maximum impact with minimum effort. Food metaphors are universally understood, and they bring sensory pleasure without causing any offense. Saying she is sweet or he looks tasty packs a massive amount of sensual subtext into a perfectly polite, incredibly low-risk package. Part 5. Why food exactly? You might be wondering, why don't we rely on other common human experiences to describe our desires? Let's do a rapid-fire process of elimination. Animals? Too direct, easily vulgar. War? Saying you want to conquer someone is way too aggressive. It completely ruins the mood. Machines? Totally emotionless. Calling someone a well-oiled machine doesn't exactly scream romance, does it? Money, too utilitarian. When you compare them all, only food combines sensory pleasure, safety, and universal relatability. It is the undisputed winner. And finally, part 6, the ultimate cultural translation. So, this brings us to the profound resolution of this whole explainer. Food metaphors don't just exist because they're convenient. They absolutely dominate global language because they sit perfectly at the crossroads of three powerful forces: what we feel biologically in our dopamine loops, what we experience sensually every single day, and what we are actually permitted to say socially. It is the perfect intersection. The source material we analyze sums this up so beautifully with this concept. Sex, the instinct, becomes food, the daily experience, which becomes language, the speakable. Humanity isn't just running away from our primal urges. We are actually acting as brilliant cultural translators, taking raw, unspeakable instinct and converting it into a socially digestible language that we can easily share. So, I am going to leave you with this one provocative thought. If simple, everyday words about sweetness and hunger are actually masking our absolute deepest evolutionary drives, what other hidden human instincts is society translating right in plain sight? I highly encourage you to start listening a little closer to the words you use every day. You might just be surprised by what you hear. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.